Members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, please come stand to receive the work from their Councillor Paul Reynolds.
Good evening, everybody. Please sit down. I would like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the council here in the council chamber. Can I ask everyone present not to talk amongst themselves during the meeting, as this can be very distracting for others who are listening to the debate? Can I also ask everyone to ensure any mobile devices are switched to silent and do not cause a distraction during the meeting? I would like to remind members that when they are able to, they are required to stand when addressing the meeting. Please ensure that you are seated in the seat allocated to you on the seating plan, so that when you speak, your name is correctly displayed on the live stream and the camera is trained on you. We aren't expecting a fire alarm tonight, but if one should occur, please follow the officers out of the building to Assembly Point on Manchester Road. The meeting is being live streamed, and I would like to welcome those watching on the Council YouTube channel. Please remember that viewers at home are not able to hear you speak if you do not use your microphone. Item 1 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 7 to 28 in the pack. I will move those minutes. Mr Deputy Mayor, will you second those minutes?
I second those minutes, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favour say aye. Those minutes are approved. Item 2, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Item 3, Mayor's communications. The civic officer will soon be sending invitations out for Holocaust Memorial on Sunday, the 25th of January 2026. The Mayor's Civic Ball, this year themed a big birthday bash, will take place on Friday, the 27th of February 2026 at Turf Moor. Tickets will be on sale soon and will support the Mayor's charity. Last year, the former Mayor raised over £9,000, which was recently shared between Pendleside Hospice and Community Outreach. So thank you very much, former Mayor. Item 4, public question time.
None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Item 5, motion to the council. Once a motion has been moved and seconded, members may speak once. They may then only speak again on an amendment. Item 5A, bereavement leave and support for families affected by pregnancy and baby loss. Pages 29 to 32 in the agenda pack. Councillor Lone, will you please move the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move this motion, and in doing so, I would like to add a few words. I believe members have already had the chance to read the motion, so I won't be reading this. I do believe this is a really important motion which has been brought to full council this evening. I would like people to consider this with the seriousness it deserves. We have a chance in Burnley Council this evening to influence national policy, which affects people on a very local level. There will be very few people in this chamber who have not been affected either directly or indirectly by this motion and what it contains. I would like to ask everyone to vote in favour of this, and I do welcome any debate on this. Thank you.
Councillor Lubna, thank you. Councillor Lubna Cohen, will you second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second the motion that's brought to full council this evening on the motion of bereavement leave and support for families affected by pregnancy and baby loss. I, like Councillor Lone, won't go through the details of the motion, but I'd like to draw members' attention to the second part of the motion, where it states that this council believes, and it's in particular to the third paragraph, that unpaid leave is not enough. No parent should face financial hardship or pressure to return to work while coping with the emotional and physical effects of losing a baby. I believe that everybody in this room and anybody who's watching on YouTube and all of the members that are either here tonight or residents will have been in some way affected by baby loss. If you're a male or a female, it affects every single person in our community, in all of our diverse communities. One of the ways that we can help people in such a traumatic period is by shaping policy. And at a very local level, we can help to influence that policy at a national level. And I think that the least that we can do is give this the seriousness that it deserves, as Councillor Lone said, and hopefully all, after a good debate, vote on the very least that we can do, and is that to influence policy so that it can help families or bereaved parents in some kind of way, at least in a financial sense, if nothing else. Thank you so much.
Any member? Councillor Gemma Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support this motion, and thank you to Councillor Lone for bringing it. Pregnancy loss is not an easy thing to talk about for those of us that have experienced it, despite 1 in 8 pregnancies ending in miscarriage. It's one of the hardest experiences that a family can go through, yet too often are expected to return to work as if nothing happened, pop a few painkillers, crack on. It's not fair and it isn't kind. The law draws a line at 24 weeks, but we all know that grief doesn't work to fix timelines, and the pain of child loss is just as real at 6 weeks as it is at 20 and beyond. Families deserve the time and support to properly recover without using their annual leave or their sick leave. The Employment Rights Bill is a long overdue recognition of that issue, but it simply doesn't go far enough. When you are trying to make sense of your loss, you should not also be worrying about rushing back to work before you're ready. 1 week of unpaid leave does not align with the approach for other forms of parental bereavement leave, which provide a minimum of 2 weeks and access to statutory parental bereavement pay. I therefore welcome this council making a representation to government to consider ensuring parity by providing at least 2 weeks paid leave to offer consistency within the legislative framework, reduce inequalities, and ensure that all parents, regardless of financial circumstance, are allowed the appropriate time to grieve. Whilst we as a council have no real control over this, I believe that using our voice to represent our residents on this is the right thing to do. So thank you for bringing it.
Councillor Jamie McGowan.
Is that working now? Yeah, let's switch seats. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As everyone in this chamber will know, recently me and my wife welcomed a new addition to our family with my second baby, a little daughter, which has brought immeasurable joy into our lives, apart from sleepless nights. But it's having a baby, and it is an amazing thing. But I'll just rewind a few years, and this motion does touch a number of people, as has already been mentioned, including myself and my wife only a few years back. So I completely understand why Councillor Lone has brought the motion, and that's being backed up by a fellow councillor. I have a lot of sympathy for anybody who goes through that. I know it badly impacted on my wife personally, and it is something that I think all employers need to be aware of. I am one who usually stands up in council and says that national politics should be left outside of this chamber, and I do stand by that point. However, on this, I would actually like to ask whether the council leader or even the proposer of the motion or seconder would look at it a little bit further, in the sense that, as far as I'm aware, this council doesn't actually have the policy that we're advocating the government put into place. And I would say that all the arguments that we'll hear to bring this forward are true. It makes total sense to do that, but I just would like to see us on a local level play our part, put it into our actual policy in Burnley Borough Council, and then I think we'll have a stronger case if we were to be advocating it with the government. Because it's one thing to say to the government, we want you to do this, but if we don't actually do it within our own house, then it's a little less meaningful. So I would just say that as my contribution to this debate, and just a bit of clarity on whether or not Burnley Council, because I think it is a little bit hazy from what I've found from officers. But apart from that, I'm happy to support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Margaret Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say thank you to Councillor McGowan, and to promise, as the person who looks after that element of my portfolio, I am more than happy to make sure that we do action that as soon as we can. It's an excellent idea.
Any other member? Councillor Lone, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to move to the vote. Thank you.
We will now move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. That is carried. Item 5B, opposition to mandatory ID cards in the UK, pages 33 to 38 in the agenda pack. Councillor Hurt, will you please move the motion?
I move this motion, Mr. Mayor, and in doing so, I'd like to say a few words. I'm not going to speak long, though, because the motion is quite long and includes everything in itself. We all know that previous attempts to bring in ID cards in this country have failed miserably, and it's only 15 years since the last complete failure, and this time the idea is even more flawed. A compulsory digital ID will cost billions at a time when we're being told that there isn't money for this, there isn't money for that, and some of the most vulnerable in society have to be hit the hardest to bring down costs. You'll see in the motion that the elderly, the disabled, the poorest in society and others will be significantly disadvantaged due to their inability to use a smartphone or even afford one in the first place. And that doesn't even cover the number of people that are actually actively abandoning smartphones to escape the constant barrage of adverts, notifications, and abuse of social media that come through smartphones themselves. There are also civil liberties issues with digital ID cards. We might see in the future people being challenged by groups in the street to prove their ID, to say who they are, what gender they are, and so on. We're seeing it now in the streets without ID cards, and the situation only gets even worse. So hopefully members will support this motion and will vote with their conscience. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gordon Lishman, will you second the motion, please?
I do second the motion, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a few quick comments. Firstly, as I think some colleagues know, I've taken on a responsibility as chair of the National Liberal Club in London recently. And on the wall there, we have a plaque to a man called Harry Wilcock. He was stopped by the police in 1952 and asked to show his ID card, which was a leftover provision from the war. He refused to do so. Immediately they said to him, well, why aren't you willing to do that? His answer was, well, perhaps I've been sleeping with the Chief Constable's wife, and I wouldn't necessarily want you to know. But he was convicted. He appealed all the way up to the top, and a group of judges did not hear his appeal, did not uphold his appeal, But the Lord Chief Justice, Lord Goddard, not noted for his liberal views, who was hearing the case, said that he was right on the principle that he was fighting, and said one of the results of ID cards would be to affect the relationship between the police and the public, and the nature of that relationship if police could arbitrarily stop anyone and ask for their ID card. Last week, the budget introduced the principle of mileage charging for electric vehicles. The minister said at that time that in theory, drivers could in future be asked to share that data, but he said this will never be mandatory. The problem with that is that he can't commit future governments. I'd just like you to think for a moment about what would happen if, for instance, in a neighbouring semi-democracy, a government decided that it was going to look for waste, and indeed to be able to find trillions of pounds worth of waste. And a friend of the leader decided to take this on and instructed a large number of minions to go out and collect government information. And they were given the right to collect that information. They collected a great deal of personal information from right across government departments. It then turned out the project was a total failure, and they left, potentially taking with them all of that information. I'd ask you to think in those circumstances of what would happen if the leader of that company and of that country, and you may remember that this is what the person in question said a fortnight ago, instructed all government departments to share their personal information about citizens in a single database. And that was an instruction to federal bodies to provide that information. Now, just think, if a government decided it wanted to collect all that information and to draw it all together, what's the best anchor for bringing that information together for reference? The answer is something like a national system of ID cards. And if you want to think about then the reality of Big Brother, that is when a government has altogether information about tax, information about benefits, information about driving, personal information from right across the board about that person. And that single central government has all that information about every citizen. And you then have to assume that somebody like, random example, President Trump, or any friend of his who might be leading a government in the UK, decided to do something similar and bring all that information together. What sort of control does that provide the people at the head of a government over all the people who live in that country? And that's why some of us are opposed, and have for many years been opposed, to the idea of a single system. And if that system were digital, it would make it even more open to the sort of corruption and the sort of political influence which we do not want to see from a central government. Therefore, I very much support this motion. I hope colleagues will do so. It is very much in the medium and long-term interest of everybody who lives in this borough and everybody who lives in this country. I beg to second, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? Councillor Jamie McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to see mandatory ID cards at all brought in within the UK. I agree with what's been said by Councillor Lishman so far. I've yet to hear a good reason to bring in ID cards at all. We have passports, we have driving licences. If you're of a certain age, you have photographic ID for bus passes, for instance. The idea that this is going to bring anything new to the table is frankly a lie. That's just the bottom line. I've heard a couple of half-hearted attempts to justify it, one of which even tries to tie into the illegal immigration problem that this country has at the moment, which this system will do not a jot to help either. when people come off boats, they haven't got passports, let alone, oh, well, if we have IDs, it'll be perfectly fine. It's all rubbish. I have had people contact me about this issue as well. I've had residents message me and say, Jamie, why is the government going ahead with this? What can be done? And as a borough councillor, well, what can be done? Nothing really in this chamber, apart from one part of the motion, which was, unless the law makes it so that we have to do something in that regard, then we won't ever do anything in this field. But I have to say this with all respect. I actually thought the motion was very badly written, and I apologise to the councillor for saying that. But I think it's because it comes from all the reasons why I disagree with mandatory ID cards, and nothing to do with people not being good enough within Burnley. Because the motion reads as if we shouldn't have it because people can't access this, or can't read properly, or don't have technological access, or all the things that is wrapped up in the motion. No, the reason why I disagree with mandatory ID cards is because it's an assault on our civil liberties. It provides a major opportunity for the government to centralise power and take much more control over our lives, because we're not run by angels, and we never will be. So I will 100% be opposed to mandatory ID in this council chamber, in general life, with friends and family, just as much as I am with the new attempts to get rid of trial by jury. I just feel like there's a major creep in this country at the moment, and if we can put a stop to that in any way possible, then I'm all for it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Alan Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I quite often agree with Councillor McGowan in terms of bringing national issues into this chamber and how much we can influence it. However, I do recognise the strength of feeling within the borough about this. I know there's been a petition and we're the third highest constituency in the country for supporting opposition to digital ID. So I do recognise that the people in this town are opposed to it. So I have no issue with supporting the motion. One thing I will sort of highlight as almost an additional extra. I don't want to amend it because I don't want to play politics with it really, but the area where you've got about lack of education, digital education within people in Burnley, is there nothing that the council can do to support people? If people are struggling above the national average with accessing the internet and digital things like that, is there anything that this council can do as a sort of a sideline to that, if those are the statistics? But other than that, I'll be happy to support the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Alan Hosker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll be agreeing with this proposal against ID cards. The cost of this government putting ID cards is unbelievable. The country's struggling as it is, families are struggling as it is, but yet you can get ID cards when they're not needed. We've got driving licences, we've got birth certificates, we've got medical records, we've got passports. All this, the government will argue it's down to illegal migration. The people that are coming in this country illegal and throwing the IDs they won't see before they get here. What benefit to the public and the British people is that? The only people being punished is our country with these ID cards. We are dead against them.
Thank you, Councillor Hosker. Councillor Ishiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I pressed the wrong one. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Hurt for bringing this motion. It's a great idea to oppose it right from here in Burnley, and which I shall be doing with other colleagues. I personally think, it's a bad idea. Why? Because it's taking away our civil liberties, as the colleague said there rightfully. And it's not convenience, it's a control. If you look at our neighbouring countries in Europe, Italy, Germany, and others, they introduced this to control so-called immigration. It hasn't made any difference, if at all. So if the government is using immigration, which needs better approach to it than using ID cards, as a way of getting this through so that people support it and have a control over. I think it's a bad idea, it's a mess, and I won't be supporting any initiatives that encourages ID cards, and I will be supporting Councillor Hurt's motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd just like to say I welcome Councillor McGowan. As we've heard, he doesn't normally take part in debates or support, these motions where they're not local enough. But I always thought the man wasn't returning, but it's good. But I think the key point to be made here is that even when we have these motions that come that might not directly affect, that will be national policy, but actually we're listening to our residents and having that debate. And that is really, really important. And, so I welcome the fact that he is supporting this motion, as he did with the other one. But I think Councillor Lishman made a very valid point, and Councillor Ishtiaq has as well. I think, and Councillor Hosker alluded to it, I think that the danger here is that under the guise of illegal migration, the government is using that as a way of trying to get this in through the back door, as if this is going to have an impact on illegal immigration. And I think the reality is we know that Councillor Lishman alluded to, what happens is who is the most likely to be stopped by the police. It's always those minority and vulnerable groups that are the ones that are targeted as a result of this. And this will further put them at risk of that and take away their liberties. And I do really question what is the purpose. I think it is being misinformation, misguided in terms of the way that it's been pushed through, or the agenda is being pushed. And I understand what Councillor Lewis has said around, can the council do something? And I think within the limited resources that we have, we do everything that we can to support those who struggle with the digital literacy and access. But, again, that's something, we would say that as a council to ask the government for more support with that, because we can do what we can with the limited resources that we have. But even when we're talking about those who have been left behind, it's generations. This is something of a whole section of community who have been left behind when it comes to inequality across the board. But this is something that we will be supporting as put forward by Councillor Hurt. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try not to be as Sesquipedalian as this motion is, but to pick up on Councillor McGowan's comment on a reason for, I welcome the option of an alternative form of ID. I used to work prison resettlement, and for transient vulnerable individuals, they didn't have access to birth certificates, they didn't have access to ID, they couldn't even open bank accounts. We used to give them basic smartphones on release so they could access universal credit and have some access to money and claim housing benefit. But they often were having their money put into bank accounts of friends and family, and that often led to their money being taken from them or reoffending. So I do think that there is a reason to have an alternative form of ID that can be transferred from device to device and can be available a lot easier. However, I think optional is the word. I don't think that it should be mandatory, and I think that our residents are telling us that they don't want it. So I'm happy to support the view of those I represent, and I'll be voting for this motion. Thank you.
I'm just going to take two more speakers, and Councillor Lorna.
Thank you, Councillor Hurt. I'll also be supporting this. And one of the ideas really is the money that would have been spent on this can be used to bolster the Home Office so that they can go through the cases that are waiting for right to remain. And also, I think having a form of ID for people who struggle as an optional way, we could use some of the budget for that as well, because you're right, some of the vulnerable mental health patients don't have ID, or people with learning difficulties. So there could be a way of sort of doing something positive out of this. So thank you, Councillor Hurt.
Councillor Chowdhury.
I'll be strongly opposing this motion on the reasons. If you have a look at the page 33 of the report, agenda item 5, it states The council opposes the introduction of mandatory digital ID cards in the UK. International evidence of limited effectiveness. It shows that all those countries, those who have used these systems, these cards, ID cards, they are all losing out. They are not working as they wished. So if you look at the Germany, despite mandatory ID cards, Germany processed over 359,000 asylum applications in 2023. In only 1 year, they have processed 359,000 asylum applications. So what good is going to do for UK if we introduce it? It's a unnecessary financial burden, and also it's not effective way of controlling the borders or whatever they are. So I'll be opposing this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Hurt, will you have a right to reply?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank members for their support on this. Councillor McGowan, I take your point. There was a period of about 2 hours where I was asked to make the motion more relevant to Burnley. So that bit was, that was very rushed to get it over the threshold. So I take your point about those reasons being badly written. They were, but it was a limited window of time to actually get the motion suitable for council. But thank you, everybody else. Thank you, and Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Councillor. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. The motion is carried. Item 6, item for decision by the council. Can I point out to members again that items for decision by council are treated as motions. Once a proposal has been moved and seconded, members may speak once and for a maximum of 5 minutes. They may then only speak again on an amendment. Item 6A, constitutional updates and reporting and changes to committee seats. Members will be aware that the revised report was issued in an agenda supplement. Councillor Anwar, will you please move the revised report and the Burnley Independent Group changes?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move the report and the changes. Thank you.
Councillor Lubna Khan, will you please second that report? Second the amended group changes. Or Councillor Melville Leishman, will you please second that report?
Second the report, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Lubna Khan, will you second the Burnley Independent Group changes?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to second the Burnley Independent Group changes.
Councillor Mogg Townsend, will you please move the Labour Group changes?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Sue Graham, will you please second those changes?
I second those changes. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Jamie McGowan, will you please move the Conservative Group changes?
I move them changes, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Mogg Steele, will you please second those changes? Councillor Emo, can you please second those changes? Councillor Lorna, will you please move the Green Group changes?
I move the Green Group changes.
Councillor Hurd, will you please second the Green Group changes?
I second those changes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. There are no changes needed to the Reform Group seats. Thank you. Any member? All those in favour, please show. That
Move the report, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Anwer, will you please second the report?
Second the report, Mr Mayor.
Any member? All those in favour, please show. That is Item 6C was thrown with Hurstwood Neighbourhood Development Plan, outcome of the referendum and making of the plan, pages 63 to 132 in the agenda pack. Councillor Lubna Khan, will you please move the report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the report.
Councillor Anwer, will you please second the report?
Second the report, Mr Mayor.
Any member? All those in favour, please show. That is Item 7, reports from committee chairs. Can members please note that for this item, they should not refer to named individuals or specific addresses when asking questions or making observations. Questions on delegated functions such as licensing and planning should be directed to the relevant committee chair rather than to executive members. Where issues relate to proceedings held in private, members should not make references which could lead to the identification of participants. 7A, Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Jamie McGowan, will you move the report at page 133 in the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that report.
Any member? 7B, Audit and Standards Committee. Councillor Solis, will you move the report at page 135 to 136 in the agenda pack?
I move the report, Mr Mayor.
Any member? Councillor Marktown.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Basically, this comment refers to the standards complaint, fourth para in the report, regarding declarations of interests. First of all, I want to be clear and open and transparent with the council that I was the complainant in this matter. And what I want to say is, first of all, the complaints that were upheld covered significant financial interests amounting to hundreds of thousands of pounds. The Constitution is clear that a local resolution can only be applied if the complainant and the subject member agree. Otherwise, it needs to go to a hearing. I didn't particularly want it to go to a hearing unless absolutely necessary, and still don't. But I did want the resolution to match the level of the transgression, which in my opinion, after I was made aware of the findings, was an open apology to the members of this council. Not a private apology, which effectively sweeps the matter under the carpet as though nothing to see here. There is something to see here, and it should be open to the members of this council and the general public. After initially the subject members saying they have done nothing wrong, a full investigation had to be undertaken that took 10 months, costing many hours of council resources. The member was eventually found to have recklessly broken the rules on 5 out of the 8 issues raised. I was told that if I named the member concerned, I would probably have a complaint put in against me. How perverse is that? So we're now left, after what I have said this evening, confirming I am the complainant. With the finger of suspicion, therefore, pointing at any one of the other members of this council. It cannot be in the public interest for all councillors to be under suspicion. It just builds a narrative that we're all in it for ourselves. This cannot be right, and I'm calling on the member to do the right thing. Hold their hand up, apologise to this council, and by association, the public, for misleading them with an incomplete declaration of interest, and consider if other appropriate actions are necessary. It cannot be left like this. It should be dealt with as per a complaint was against former councillor Marcus Johnston a few years ago in 2020, when there was a report public for a local resolution matter that went to the Audit and Standards Committee. Therefore, so that's really the context of what we're talking about here. So I've been open that I'm complainant. I do have a question as well. I never accepted, sorry, I'll just say, the Constitution is clear in this regard as well. I always say that basically the Constitution has not been complied with, I don't believe, fully in the respect to this complaint. And I quote from the Constitution, if the complainant or the subject member refuse local resolution in principle or to engage with the agreed outcome, the monitoring officer will refer the matter for a local hearing without further reference to the complainant or the subject member. That has not happened in this case, and that's paragraph 11 of part 5.1 of the Code of Conduct. So, basically, I never accepted the term of local resolution put forward. That being the case, the question I asked tonight, do you agree that it is a breach of the Constitution that a private apology to the monitoring officer be deemed appropriate as a complaint resolution in this case? So I'll put the whole context of what this complaint is all about, and I just say that, in my opinion, the spirit and not just the spirit, but the letter of the Constitution has not been adhered to. And I would obviously, I'm aware that the chair is not here tonight and it falls on the vice chair, which is unfortunate, but I would like a response to what's happened here, and I think it all needs clearing up very quickly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would you bring a couple of more people? Councillor Gemma Hegg, did you indicate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I also would like to apologise to Councillor Solis for getting something that the Chair may have been able to answer. I would like to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Solis, about the part of the report that states members asked about the procedure for making the outcome of complaints public. I can see that our current procedure is that only breaches of the Code of Conduct that make it to a hearing and where the panel deems it a fit action to take are actually published with the name of the councillor involved. Personally, I would like to see all proven breaches of the Code of Conduct be published with councillor names. As councillors, we are told time and time again that we are only accountable through the ballot box, and I believe that our residents deserve to be able to hold us accountable for our behaviour as their representatives. The Audit and Standards reports currently only read things such as Borough Councillor, words spoken in committee, breach found at initial assessment and councillor apologised. Our residents don't know, looking at that, which of the 45 of us did it. When I knock on Jane Doe's door in Ghana and ask her for a vote, I tell her how wonderful I am and all the work I do for her here, and I ask her for a vote, she should be able to say to me, but hang on a minute, Councillor Haig, because I've just read that you had to apologise for verbally abusing somebody. And then she should be able to hold me to account for that by putting her vote in a box for somebody else if they better fit her values. Whilst the Code of Conduct powers can't take any real action against us as councillors right now, I believe that residents should have the basic ability, and we should be entirely transparent with our residents where any of our behaviour falls short. So does Councillor Solis, as the Vice Chair of Audit and Standards, agree with me on that? And would she know how to make a formal request to change our constitution to ensure that we are fully transparent with our residents when our behaviour falls short of what they expect of us? Thank you.
Councillor Solid, are you okay if we take 2 more people? Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so I want to raise an issue with regards to confidentiality and public exposure. And I have held my hand. I'm guilty. I am one person who is subjected to a complaint procedure, and the decision is still pending. But when the complaint went, the very next day, or it could be even on the day, a Facebook post about the complaint was put on on Facebook with my picture and the allegations I made. I wanted to know, and I asked the question as to who was responsible for disclosing that information, personal data information that is broke data protection laws and laws of the land. I did get an email back recently being told the council doesn't know. And I'm appalled by that. How would you not know who has leaked that information if there are people who are party to that information? The complainants, the council officer. So apart from that, who else would have known that? And I'm very disappointed with the council and the council officers for not investigating that and not looking at it thoroughly. And if I may so, I was fobbed off. And I'm quite angry now that somebody has been found guilty and we do not know who that person is within this chamber. There's 45 of us and each one of us is guilty. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope the audit chair takes this matter seriously.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The matters that are being discussed this evening, I think obviously there's confidentiality around what is being, but from my point of view, it's just an observation. Obviously this, from what I see, and the Chair of Audit and Standards isn't here to answer the questions, but as an observation, what I would say, these are matters, what we're debating here are matters for the Audit and Standards Committee. And it's not something really that we should be discussing here. But I think when we're talking about transparency and people are focusing on one report, and that all 45 of us could be under suspicion is what's been mentioned. But if we're going to talk about transparency, from looking at the report itself, there are 3 complaints that have been upheld. Why is one being held to a higher standard? And if are we all under suspicion then for all of those, the other 2 as well? And I think we've got to be really, really careful about what it is that we're sharing at this point. So I would say if we're going to be transparent, we need to be transparent about all 3 reports. And if we're not, then what we need to do is make sure that we allow the Audit and Standards Committee to do their job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Point of personal clarity, Mr. Mayor. The point that I made was about all of the audit and standards reports, and specifically borough councillors' words spoken in committees, breach found. That isn't the one that Councillor Townsend referred to. I was referring to all, and my point was that we should be transparent on every one of us should be held to the same standard, no matter whether the complaint is you've sworn at another council member or a staff member because you've got frustrated and you've gone, that was really out of character and I'm really sorry about that. That should still be public because that is the only way that our residents can hold us to account. I'm not focusing on one complaint, I'm focusing on the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sue Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We could have an I Spartacus thing going on here because I've been the subject of a complaint in the past and I've had to defend myself in a hearing and take the resolution that was applied by that hearing. I think there's a real issue here. And Councillor Haig has said it, and so has Councillor Hussain. We need transparency in this. We need to have a root and branch look at the complaints procedure and some revision of it so that we can be sure that we all know who does what or who says what in terms of complaints and so on, but the people out there know how their councillors, who they have elected, how they behave in certain situations. So I would suggest with respect to the Vice Chair of Audit and Standards, that there is some discussion put on the agenda for the next committee meeting to discuss this issue. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Margaret Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's an interesting one. It's beginning to feel like a name and shame. And one of the things about complaints is that people should have the opportunity to learn from them. And one of the things I said in the last audit meeting was that we didn't have the comparative data from the previous similar period. Because I think seeing the trends, and we did see trends, or we were told about trends. We were told about trends around social media, particularly, and one of the issues that was raised was that we ought to have conversations about training and more training in that area. What was interesting was that some of my residents came to a meeting recently of planning. And I note Councillor Haig's comments about being open and transparent. After he left that planning meeting, he said, I now understand it isn't true. You don't go get brown paper envelopes, and you do actually look and see what's going on before you make decisions. So I'm not sure whether putting the names out will make that amount of difference. I do think that we ought to learn from complaints and we ought to treat them all seriously. If Councillor Townsend isn't happy, he shouldn't have to come to full council to air it here. It ought to have been done with the monitoring officer, or if that was unsatisfactory, with the chief executive. That is the purpose of the officers that we have employed. I do think we should look at how we manage complaints. There's been so many comments, but I think it is a matter for audit, and it's a matter for members' structures, and I would hope to see it there, please.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to take a couple more. Councillor Jamie McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I sit on the Audits and Standards Committee as the Chair of Scrutiny, so I do see all the debate that takes place. It is a shame that Councillor Whitaker's not here as the Chair to actually have an input on this. But a few things listening to the debate so far, or the comments that have been made, you know, I think most people, members of the public, actually couldn't give a rat's ass about the code of conduct and complaints that goes on in this council. I'll be honest, that's the truth of the matter. However, I do, in the same breath, I do always treat every single one of you in this room and council officers with respect that you deserve, because we're all here elected. We've all got a mandate from the residents who send us in. We all need to be nice people with each other. It doesn't stop us having political debates, but I just try and be a nice person, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Just touching on some of the points that have been raised, though, I kind of agree with Councillor Haig. If you are found guilty of a breach of the code of conduct, then having your name on a report as the actual councillor who's been found in breach, I don't have an issue with that, because you shouldn't have spoke to someone the way you did if that's the case. That is almost the punishment, if you will. So I don't mind about that point. As for Councillor Shah, when he says that who's breached it, probably the complainant. They're probably the one that said to another councillor or another person, this is the complaint against him, and that's why you found your face all over Facebook, perhaps. I don't know, but that just seems like, yeah, I think that's just common sense in my mind. That. But then the last part, which is kind of a little bit like perplexing to me. We've got Councillor Townsend, who has stood up and said that somebody has breached the code of conduct and there has been a resolution that he's not happy with. I think he's completely right in terms of the Constitution and what it says. That is what the Constitution says. If you're not happy with that local resolution, it would go to a committee. I don't know why that hasn't happened. I don't know the details. But I would just say to Councillor Townsend, instead of all this long drawn-out process, why not just stand up, take the code of conduct yourself, say who the member is, and then you can do an apology and it be on a private piece of paper and your name's never mentioned anywhere, like Councillor Haig is basically campaigning to have overturned. So I don't know. It just seems like it's this big loop. Just who is the councillor that you're talking about? I'm intrigued, and I think, you know, if you want to say it, say it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
A good debate. Councillor Becky Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In my first week of being a councillor, I actually received a complaint myself over social media posts, as you do. As being a young activist, I've maybe shared a few things that some people found offensive, which is fair enough. I apologise, and I didn't necessarily get put through the processes because I wasn't technically a councillor at the time of posting it, so I wasn't under the code of conduct. However, I was very pregnant at the time, and it caused a lot of stress. And I don't know what kind of moment anybody is in this room in their life, whatever stresses they have. Could be ill relatives, could be losing a job or anything like that. And I think that if we go down the route of going on social media and trying to push for transparency at times, you don't know what someone's going through and things. And this is probably from a bit more of an emotional sort of standpoint. And I can only speak from what I went through as a pregnant woman, first coming into council and thinking like, oh, these people hate me already. Which I know that isn't the case. Everyone's lovely here and I get along with all of you fine. But it is a comment that if you start throwing it out on social media, we've seen it even with Fiona, do you know what I mean? After what comments she made online and how many people went after her, even like death threats and things like that, do you know what I mean? We've got to be very, very careful because we're public figures at the end of the day. And I think sometimes when they withhold the names, I think a part of that is to try and protect us as public figures as well. And it's not always something corrupt or something bad in a sense. It's just, I think that obviously if it gets to the point where your name's being mentioned, it's because it's got to the point where it should be mentioned. Whereas if it's been withheld, it might just be because that person's made a genuine human mistake and whoever's made that decision has agreed with that. But that's all I'll say from my own experience.
Sorry. Just basically a point of personal clarification, just in terms of, because I know the debate has moved on a lot, but what I was talking about wasn't some social media post of what might have caused an offence. What I was talking about, and what is actually in the report, is a failure to report declarations of interest fully and compliantly, which can be a criminal offence in the courts of law. Never mind with it, what happens within this council chamber. So I just want to basically split what I call lots of trivia and stuff that appears on social media with an actual hard fact of basically failing to declare and be open with the public in terms of declarations of interest. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Townsend. Councillor Christine Solis, you have a right to reply.
Yeah. Those that have spoken, very interesting. I think I'd like to thank you for your comments, and also there is a depth of feeling regarding this particular issue. Those that have asked questions, I thank you. It will be noted and has been noted. And I think this now needs to go to the chair, who will respond to you all in due course. I feel personally that within audit and standards that this is something that needs in-depth discussion. So I will take that back to our chair, and hopefully then you can receive a response from him and get some satisfactory replies. So thank you all for your comments.
Thank you, Councillor Solis. 7C, last in committee. Councillor Nusrat Kazmi, will you move the report at page 137 in the agenda pack? Any member? 7D, Development Control Committee. Councillor Ishiak, will you move the report at page 139 in the agenda pack?
I move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? Item 8, Strategic Plan Progress Report, page 141 to 176. Members, please note again that for this item, they should not refer to named individuals or specific addresses when asking questions or making observations. I will take each report in order. I will ask for any questions on the report, and the executive member will respond to a number of questions. The same procedures will then be followed for observations. Can I remind members with a question or observation to clearly quote the page number and reference and allow time for the executive member and everyone else to find it in their agenda pack? Will members please be concise with their questions and observations? Leader, Councillor Anwar, will you please move your report from page 142 on the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move my report, and just by way of an update, obviously when the report was prepared, we hadn't had the extraordinary full council where a decision was made to submit our proposals, our business case. So that has now been done. So I just wanted to update members on that. But I will take any questions and observations. I move, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Sue Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's in relation to PR12 on page 143, but it also has a crossover to Councillor Khan's report as well on PR15. PR12 refers to securing strategic investment and positioning Burnley as a hub for economic investment. I note from the Lancashire Telegraph today that Blackburn with Darwen, which already has 6 railway stations, is likely to get a 7th under plans in the local transport plan that's being developed by Lancashire County Combined Authority. Can I ask, are we falling behind even further because of the lack of our lack of role in the LCCA, or do we have to lobby on our own to get funding for Manchester Road Station, which, as Councillor Khan says in her report, is not getting the funding that is needed? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Shah Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of questions. Can I ask them now, or do you want me to ask one by one?
You can ask them now, both now.
All of them now, because I don't want to be told I can't answer.
Okay, you can ask 2 now. Yeah.
Are they all relating to the leaders?
They're not all related to the same thing.
Well,
Are they related to the leaders?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes, you can.
Okay, okay. So it's page 143, and it's working with government and so on, county council and so on. I wanted to ask the leader, and we had a motion on Gaza and ceasefire and so on at the last meeting. It's on the minutes of this meeting, which we passed. I wanted to ask the question of the leader is, has he managed to do anything with those resolutions? Has he written to any of the ministers or prime ministers that we asked? Also, has the council published that motion through its social media platform and amplified it? Has it put it forward to the local government association and so on? It's on the motion itself, and I just want to ask the question, has he done that or not, or does he intend to do it? So that's one question. Another question I wanted to ask, it's with his leadership. We can put it in local council. Can he either deny or confirm if the individual who has been subject to subject to a complaint is part of his executive or not? And if it is, what kind of action is he going to take? Thank you.
Councillor Anwer, can you answer a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on the first question from Councillor Graham with regards to the CCA and the announcement in the Lancashire Telegraph, I've not seen the actual the article that she's referring to, but what I will say is that our submission, we have been working very closely with the CCA, particularly on the transport, and have raised the issue and the requirements of what we want to see as part of the developments, further develop the links at Manchester Road. As you will know, that was something that was part of our levelling up bid that we put in. Then there were changes to that and we fell short in terms of the funding. So as part of that, one of the asks is to complete that piece of work. In addition to that, it's about how do we make our links better to Manchester in terms of increasing, one, the quality of trains, but also, secondly, the quantity of trains that are going as well. So how quickly we send in. So that is part of it, and a much wider actual programme of asks that we've put in. The Chief Executive has actually just written to the CCA with our asks, and I'm happy for that to be shared with yourself and members in terms of what we're asking for there. Okay, so I hope that answers your questions, but we're not being left further behind, and I think this is the point to be made here is that the funding that was secured under levelling up for the developments at Manchester Road was secured under the previous government, and now it's an opportunity for this current government to step up and provide us with the resources that we need if we want to push forward and further develop those links, whether that's to Manchester or whether that's into Leeds and Yorkshire. So hopefully that will be forthcoming. In terms of Councillor Hussain, in terms of all of the motions that were brought to this council at the meeting where we had a number of motions, all of those actions were taken. So letters were written to the relevant ministers or to the Prime Minister, whoever it might have been, with all of those motions. I will check to see if a response has been received on the particular motion that he's talking about, but I can't remember off the top of my head. That should have been shared with members if it hasn't, but I don't recall seeing a response. But as I said, in terms of what we did as leader and what we did as a council, in terms of writing and taking that action of what was asked of us in this chamber on all of those motions, that was carried out. And I will share, I thought letters had already been shared, the responses that we've had on each of those, I thought that had actually already come back and been shared with members. If it hasn't, I will ensure that is shared with all members. With regards to the final question, we've debated this when we were talking about audit and standards. This is a matter, in my opinion, it's a matter for audit and standards and for the chair there. It's not an executive function in terms of the complaint. It's actually a matter for audit and standards to have a look at. But what I will say is that, and I will reiterate what I said before, if we're going to be transparent about one and we're going to focus in on one and we're going to scrutinise one, we need to be scrutinising all. So if you're going to share the details of one, share them for them all, but do it. I personally think, and I fully agree with what Councillor Hughes said, is that we're in here, we're in the public spotlight. Not one of us knows what is going on sometimes in other people's personal lives or what some of the things that they've got to deal with. And there will be elements of that constitution that will be there to protect people, to protect every single one of us, because sometimes the nonsense and the grief and the pressure that we have to be put up with as elected members, that does take its toll on individuals, and we've seen that. And Councillor Hughes, she articulated that in the way and gave her own personal experience. And I think we just need to be mindful about when we're talking about how we put people's names out there into the public domain, just so that they can become a target for abuse. And that's where we've done it numerous times. We've spoken about social media and the use of social media, and I still think members need to be very careful about what they post on there and how some of that draws attention and is done in a way as clickbait, and sometimes it's done in a way to have a go at individuals. And I think that's something maybe all of us need to look at wider, but sometimes look at ourselves as well and our own behaviour. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, any observations? Councillor Jamie McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is PR 12, page 143. Just an observation from what Councillor Graham mentioned with the footbridge, well, the bridge going across Manchester Road train station. I saw the same article. Isn't it funny? I saw the same article in the Lancashire Telegraph saying that Blackburn is pushing for another railway station. Burnley got given money to build a bridge over the train station at Manchester Road. And that's not to mention that we've got a crumbling railway station at Burnley Central, which go back 60, 70 years is much better than it is now, which I think is frankly a joke. We should be seeing progress, not decline. But we had the money for the bridge, but it went from £3 million for a bridge, which I think is a staggering amount anyway for a metal bridge with 2 lifts at either side, to what is it now, 4 or 5 million that we're now being quoted. So the thing is about the bridge, when we're talking about that level of money, we need to get real with it. Like £4 or £5 million to build a bridge. I actually did some costings of my own and contacted a number of companies, and I wanted to bring this as an observation. I actually looked into getting a lift, 2 lifts on either side, because I thought that'd be the most expensive part. I went to a reputable lift company and told them I wanted lifts that would be suitable for the One World Trade Center in New York City. That's how gold-plated I want these lifts to be. And they came back with no more than £250,000 for them 2 lifts as a price for me. At the same time, the actual metal work to put the bridge in is all made off-site and then put in with a crane, and that tops no more than 500,000. So where these figures come from, with Network Rail or Burnley Borough Council working with LCC, etc., frankly, is a joke. And I just wanted to put it on record because it's all well and good saying, Councillor Graham, it's all well and good saying we need to push for more funding, but we also need to get value for money for taxpayers at the same time. And I don't think a bridge spending that amount of money. But on the flip side, I do share your sentiment that Burnley should be getting a bridge built. It's not a big thing, is it? We're talking about a bridge, and Blackburn's talking about the 7th train station. So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Shah Hussain. Page number, Councillor.
Page 143, PL12. With the question I asked with regards to the clarity on Gaza and so on, and if a letter has been written and if we can get a copy of that letter, and I'd welcome that. And also, if we've got a response, please, if you could share it with all of us. And in terms of the other resolution that was agreed, I can't see any of that being done. And for example, we did say for the council to promote that motion on its to publish the resolution on the council's website and social channels to inform residents of our position and actions that we've taken. That did not happen. And I'm not sure, I've looked through the council's website and social platform, zilch, nothing at all. And in terms of local government association and so on, if that's been given, if forwarded on to them, and I would like to know, and if you could, please. The reason I ask that is because when we do a resolution, we need to understand if it's going to be carried out and if it's going to be done. And I feel at times that we get ignored, and that doesn't really happen. And this is the classic case. With no disrespect to Councillor Anwar, when it comes to this topic, I've not seen him make any kind of promotion or anything like that on his platform or so on. That's the reason I asked that question. Has he actually written the letter? Because my gut feeling is that happening? What we got? Because it's not on the council's website in terms of the motion. As to the other issue that I asked and my observation to it, I asked him a specific question, whether to confirm or to deny. He could have said, he could have denied it. But he didn't. It's an observation, Chair, and I'm making that my observation. He talks about on abuse on people get on social media. I've been getting abuse for the last 3-4 months on social media. It's because information was leaked when it shouldn't have been. And I've been getting that abuse for the last 3-4 months. And I want colleagues to know that. And I want colleagues to be aware of that. It's not fair. It's not right. Thank you.
Councillor Beck, you indicate you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I quite like Councillor Shah Hussein's approach to this lot. Why don't we all go mad? I've got 6 questions for the council leader regarding the...
We're doing observations.
The thing on, yeah, or audits, observation. It's an observation that I've got 6 questions, councillor. The first one being, does the councillor's name begin with A to L, or does it begin with M to N? Next one going back, does it begin with A to E? And let's keep going like that till we rattle it down. Is it male, female? Is she black? Is she white? Is he black? Is he white? Who knows? Let's
Mr.
stop
Mayor,
it.
point of
We've
order.
said what we're going to do, Mr.
A point of clarification.
Why keep going like that? That's just ridiculous, trying to identify somebody. I find that appalling.
Bring Councillor Hussain back in, then I'm going to go.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. My question wasn't to Councillor Baker. If it was, I'll put it on his report. I didn't ask him for his answer. All I asked was a question. Confirm or deny. That's all it is. That's all it was. My observation was he did neither. He didn't deny it, neither did he confirm it.
Councillor Hussain, I'm going to bring Councillor Anwar in. Councillor Anwar, can you...
So, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think I'll take Councillor McGowan's question first, which is around obviously the observation around the bridge. I agree with him. I don't think you know, a bridge should be costing that amount of money. But you know, I don't know any you know, in terms of how we would get it cheaper or anything. But it does seem a lot of money for what we're asking for. A bridge that would take us from one side of the platform. It would be very helpful. Would be very helpful because it would save, especially from an accessibility point of view. But the delays and the increase in the cost is not a fault of the council. We did what we could as a council to put in a bid to bring that money in. Unfortunately, it's not, you know, we've not been able to deliver that aspect of the project under Levelling Up. And it's Network Rail that have increased that cost. But going back to, and again, it goes back to the original question from Councillor Graham and what Councillor McGowan is saying is that, you know, what we're seeing here, and we've seen it as part of devolution, is, you know, Blackburn is pushing for, you know, more for their area. And it's because, you know, Blackburn and the unitaries, the upper tiers, sit on top, at the top table in terms of what they can push for. And this goes back to our first argument, which what we discussed last week, which was, if we end up in a unitary council that is run from Blackburn, that's what we'll see. We'll see lots more resources being pumped into places like Blackburn. And areas like Burnley, Pendle, Hyndburn, Rossendale will suffer as a result of it. So I'm glad, actually, that members made the right decision last week to actually push forward and unanimously support our proposals as a council, because what we'll see is that you know, resources taken out of places like Burnley and put into other areas. Now, the other thing, just in terms of the questions that, or the observations from Councillor Hussain. As I said to him, the letters have gone out to all of the, as we said, as part of the ask. And then the other observation, it was around did we write to the LGA? Yes, we did. And I do recall actually seeing a response on that. So again, I will make sure that any responses that he's referring to are shared with all members as well, so you can see the action. In terms of, I'd have to have a look at it, but I don't know what the minutes and all the reports and any decisions that are made are shared on the council website. But I'm not sure what I'd have to check whether we have a policy where individual motions by individual members are shared on the council's social media. I'm not sure that's something that we do. It's a practice that we have. And then he accuses me of not sharing any of this on my social media. with regards to the situation on Gaza. And I'd just like to put the record straight is that if you look at my social media in terms of speaking up for the issue of Palestine, I think my record is there for all to see in terms of what my views have been on that. Resigned. First of all, people are calling for the resignation of Keir Starmer now. I called for his resignation 2 years ago, and I said he wasn't fit to lead the Labour Party, and I said he wasn't fit to lead the country. I said that 2 years ago. People are saying it now. They're seeing the light now, right? I resigned from the Labour Party on principle, because I wanted to be able to speak up openly for the people of Palestine, right? So I'm there in terms of my record is there for what, and you can see on my social media in terms of that. But I think in terms of so to throw that accusation, I think is very unfair. But as I say, in terms of the final question or the observation he says is about whether I'm going to deny or accept it, whether I know who the individual is. As I've said, and I've said it 2 times, I'll say it for a 3rd time, this is a matter for the Audit and Standards Committee. And when we're talking about transparency, be transparent on all of them, not just on the ones that you want to pick and choose and target. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, Deputy Leader and Executive Member for Resources and Performance Management. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you please move your report from page 145 of the agenda pack?
I move the report, Mr. Mayor, and it's not my intention to go into any great detail in terms of PF19 at the moment, but people will be aware that we're likely to get our settlement probably the day before Christmas Eve if the government are up to their usual form. What they appear to be saying at the moment is that whilst we are predicted to be 15% down on the income that they give us, they will make that up to 5%. So that we'll only be 5% down on next year's settlement. But I say that with a caveat, and I have written today to the Minister for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, because in order to work out the sum of money that they will give us as a core settlement, they are no longer showing the money for food waste collection as a separate item. They are lumping that in with the settlement that they are likely to give us. This will have an impact on this council. If you want some consolation, we're not going to be as badly off as Blackpool, which apparently at the moment look as though they're £22 million down on what they will receive. But we will be down. So I just share that with some sadness to have to say it before Christmas to you.
Any questions? Councillor Jamie McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Lishman won't be surprised to know it is on PF19, page 146. In regards to the budget, you know, I've been here since 2022, and every year I've heard Labour members talk about how the last government didn't fund local councils enough and how we didn't get enough money. Listening to what's been said this evening and reading your report, there is always this conversation about, well, it's we're getting more money, but it's not, if we're getting more money, well, it's not in real terms and it doesn't account for inflation. Are we saying that the amount of money that the council's set to receive for the next financial year is not only going to be less in terms of the inflation, in terms of taking into account inflation, but in actual real terms, it will be down as well? In every metric, are we saying it will be down? And then secondly, are we not getting the fairer funding review, which we've been, which obviously we'd heard so many years of, oh, well, we'll bring this in, we'll bring this in, we'll bring this in. Is that still not coming? Because looking at the report, it is quite dire reading. I'm a person who stands up at every budget meeting of this council talking on freezing council tax, or at least trying to reduce the amount residents have to pay. Is this effectively going to put a massive burden on us in next year's budget? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mark Townsend.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a quick comment on what Councillor McGowan said there. I think we reviewed the MPF medium-term financial strategy at the last meeting, and I don't think anything's changed since then until we see the updated figures. So everything else is speculation. Not that I want to put words in Councillor Lishman's mouth, but just referring to the report, PF 19, page 146, again, it's the revenue budget. I noticed that for the second time in 3 years, we failed to get the Q2 reports on time, which is really disappointing because these are statutory reports that the council should review as they're happening in real time throughout the year. But some figures must be available because Councillor Lishman has put within the report that it'll show an improving situation. So I want to know really why are those figures, if you've got them and there's an improving situation, and you're not making them available to all members. And I'm a bit surprised that the excuse of local government reorganisation having to respond to that is being used in terms of why these reports can't be produced for us. So can you just let us know really, because obviously a few of us in this chamber take a good deal of interest in the budget, where we are, what are likely to be the position at year end, because we're all now working towards February/March when we set the next budget for this council. So I'm hoping you could tell us that really the figures for Q2 will be available to all members before Christmas. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Margaret Lishman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In answer to Councillor McGowan, I think we have to, as Councillor Townsend has said, see what we end up with. It isn't theoretically long to wait, but the messages that I am receiving from a variety of sources and what we have seen in the budget does not fill me with great glee. And certainly the professionals that we have been dealing with and talking to, as I say, we will be about 15% down, but we won't in reality be that. They are talking about it only being 5% down, and that's where it is. In regard to Councillor Townsend's comments, I think I don't know whether there's a degree of naivety on the work that's involved in trying to get together the figures for a local government review and to make that timescale. I think it's reasonable to allow that laxity, if you like. I am more than happy to talk to the finance department. I do not have any in front of me at the moment that I am able to share, but I will make sure that some statement is shared with all councillors, not just with you, Councillor Townsend, but all councillors to have a summary of the Q2 position before the Christmas period. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any observations? Councillor Mark Townsend.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a point of clarification, I did ask that the figures go to all councillors and not just me personally, so just to put that on the record once again. But I'm a bit surprised this council can't do more than one thing at once. Granted, there was quite a bit of work in local government reorganisation submission that had to go in, but we're talking about Q2 reports that are quite standard in coming out. And I have to say that I looked on Pendle's website this morning and they managed to get their Q2 reports out 3 weeks ago. Now, presumably they had to do the same amount of work as we did in Burnley. They've managed to do more than one thing at once. Why can't this council? And sorry, that's a rhetorical question at the end. Thank you, it's an observation.
Councillor Margaret Lishman.
I'm not sure it deserves an answer, really, but what I will say is that we are not Pendle Council, we are Burnley. And we don't just do Q2 accounts. We have a lot of other things that we have to do. I have made a promise to councillors and I will make sure that that is kept. I don't intend to say anything further.
Community and Environmental Services. Councillor Howard Baker, will you please move your report from page 148 on the agenda pack?
I so move, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Gemma Haig.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I promise I've only got 2, Councillor Baker. You don't have to go on quite so loudly. So PL4, page 148, 149-ish. It's about the House of Lords report in October that identified 2 illegal waste sites in Burnley around the same size as the well-publicised one in Kent that's going to take the council's entire yearly budget to clean up. Now, I have discussed this with the leader of the council and brought it to his attention. I know that he's done some stuff on that. And I know that he's approached the Environment Agency for comment. But I'm also aware that sometimes the Environment Agency operates on its own strange boundaries. So I was wondering if Councillor Baker could confirm that as a council, we are not aware of any illegal waste sites like Portswood that are actually within the boundaries of this council. And then, am I okay to ask my second question? I promise that's a brief one. Is that okay, Councillor Baker? Yeah. No, sorry. I think it's still PL4, page 150. Operation Bright Sparks. I'm sure other councillors have had the same, but a huge increase in residents contacting about use of antisocial firework use late night over October and November. So I was just wondering if the executive member could tell us what the council does to help residents that are being plagued throughout October and November with firework noise, antisocial fireworks going off in the middle of the night, interrupting the sleep, upsetting the animals, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haig. Councillor John Harbour.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's page 152, PF20, this council's commitment to core services. I think, Mr Mayor, we've seen many brilliant examples of our commitment throughout the borough, but I'd just like to highlight one really is regard Burnley Town Centre. And over this last few months, we've all seen the wonderful flower displays down there, which I accept don't come under your remit, but I've always been impressed with the standard of cleanse around Burnley Town Centre. It's absolutely spotless. I do believe, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, that there are 2 operatives who work in Burnley Town Centre, and their job is basically, and they do what they do, they keep the place spotless, they go around on a regular basis, 5-6 days a week, emptying the bins. So my question is, what level of service, of cleansing service, does this council provide in Padiham Town Centre at the moment?
Councillor Baker, can you take 2 more questions? Okay. Councillor Shah Hussain. Oh, I thought you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And it's PL4, page 151, and it's with regards to the recruitment process currently underway to appoint principal licensing officer. And in light of, I just want to ask a question with regards to the licensing team and with regards to, is it sustaining itself? I know we've had a number of taxi drivers who have been licensed by that team and have declined dramatically. And I just want to know if because we always had the licensing team being funded by the or subsidised by the fees that come in. And I just want to know if that's still the case, or is the council subsidising some of the officers and officers' role?
Councillor Baker, let me apologise for about before. Can you answer those 3 questions? Thank you.
No problem, Mr Mayor, you're in charge. I always remember that. Councillor Haig, are we aware of the 2 illegal waste sites you told me about? Well, obviously, yes, I am. But I was also aware of them first, beforehand. The Environmental Agency say there are 2 illegal waste, but they will not tell any reporters or journalists where they are. So I don't feel it's my case here tonight to tell them where they are. I will willingly tell you after where they are and what's going on with them, but not in a public meeting, because for some reason, and I don't know why, the biggest problem is with these illegal waste sites, we've very little control over them as a council. It's an environmental agency that has to bring prosecutions against them. Now, we assist with those prosecutions by sending officers out to have a look at what's going on, etc., and that way and help take it forward. But it's out of our hands, is that. So hopefully that answers that question. Fireworks is a police problem, as we like to say. It's nothing to, we've no control over it at all, apart from licensing the shops to sell them. But you can't do much after the horse has bolted. I agree with you, because when I live in Lower House, every weekend there's fireworks going off now, whereas when I was younger, you used to be able to have them about the 1st of November to the 5th, and that was it. Then you could, now and again, the police had turned a blind eye at Christmas if you got any fireworks left over. But it seems to start now and carry on. But all we can do, well, nothing, if I'm totally honest, because I'm thinking if the firework goes off, how do we know which shop it's goes back to? Can we do something about the licence for that shop? We'll never trace it. Okay. Councillor Harbour. I've no idea what's happening in Padiham Town with the number of operatives we've got, John, to keep it clean. I go there every day. I was in there this afternoon. It looks clean. It looks spotless to me. So I presume somebody's cleaning them. But if I will ask our street scene staff to come back to you with how many operatives are doing it and where they are, if that satisfies you with your question on that one. Okay. I don't personally know the operatives, so I can't honestly answer that one. Councillor Hussain, licensing officer, is it self-financing? Well, yes and no is the short answer. One of it's not my place to answer, because that's the licensing committees, where for taxi licensing we collect money from them. For selective licensing we collect money from the landlords, etc. But there obviously is a cost to us for the licensing officers and things like that. It's not all self-financing, but would that it were. But unfortunately we can't charge everybody for that, and unfortunately the council taxpayers have to pay for it, but on the other hand they get a fantastic service. Thank you. Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Can you 3 more? You're okay with 3 more. Councillor Alan Hosker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, you're in charge of the place, aren't you? You've got somebody to do with the place. Yeah? Well, if you're not, no, I didn't know if you had. No, I didn't know if you had. I didn't know if you had. No, the thing I was going to raise with you is the parking issues. The parking issues on pavement. We spent a lot of money in Padiham, as you know, on new pavements. And, well, sorry, mate. It's going on to PL4 150. The concerns I have is parking issues in Padiham on pavement parking. As you know, we've invested a lot of money in Padiham, and the main with taxis what are parking on pavements. The other concern is with taxis picking up on zebra crossings. People using zebra crossing to bob into Aladdin's Cave. It's dangerous. Now, I've spoke to the police and we just seem to be, well, we're busy with this, that and other. As a Burnley council, I'd expect us as a council to stand against this place and just get something done before somebody gets killed. Before somebody gets killed. It's a concern more than anything, Councillor Baker. It may not be you at place, but as a council as a whole, it wants to address you. Thank you, buddy.
Councillor Alan Hosker. Councillor Mark Townsend.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. PL4 Waste and Cleansing Contractor Depot. Now, I know we all appreciate where we've got to on this process. The budget has been set and planning approvals have been given. But I just want to ask, there's a a question regarding committing actual monies to the project, because I am aware there's still a potential procurement going on by Lancashire County Council in terms of a solution for East Lancashire, and the actual planning application for the waste transfer station itself has not yet been published or approved. So I just want a commitment or a guarantee from the executive member that no money will be put into developing the new depot until those two things are clarified, that one, the procurement exercise doesn't put something in its way, and we have a planning application that's approved for the WTS itself. Otherwise, the money can just be wasted on building something that's not needed. So I just want to guarantee that we're not going to start committing money that's not needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Members, to when the acting executive member questions, to quote the page number and also the reference in the report. Councillor Ishiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, I think, congratulate Councillor Hosker's detail in terms of taxis picking up on zebra crossing. Next time we'll be coming with a taxi wasn't washed. So I don't know how relevant that is, such a detail for exec member. It's probably a matter for the licensing. I have a question on PL4 149. Firstly, well done to some of the outcomes in terms of the fixed penalties and catching people dumping waste and so forth. My question is, Councillor Baker, you may remember I asked some months back as well. I appreciate the outcome and the success of this, but what bit of it has been done by Kingdom? Could you differentiate what is our street scene? What bit have they achieved in terms of fixed penalties and dropping off letters and so forth, and what bit of it is done by our contractor Kingdom? And to follow on from that, what performance measures do we have in place? And would he consider having an item in his report to share that at every council on terms of what Kingdom have achieved in terms of for a contract we've got with them? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Howard Baker.
Keen tonight, Mr. Mayor, aren't they? My God. Right, taxis on pavement parking. It's the police again. It's absolutely nothing to do with us. The only thing it would be to do with us was taxis picking up on zebra crossings if they were private hire vehicles and hadn't been booked. And we're just stopping at things and just saying, would you want to get in the cab and drive off? That would be the only thing that would affect us. Obviously, picking up on a zebra crossing in itself is a dangerous thing, and that's where the police should come in and do it. So, but again, the council's no control over that at all. All we do is licence the taxis through the licensing committee, and that needs addressing back to the chair of licensing in his earlier thing. So that's all I'm going to say to you on that, Councillor Hosker. Councillor Townsend, the waste depot. Well, bear with me a minute. Boom, boom. Right. I know where you're going with this, Councillor Townsend, and I feel for you. I do to a large extent as well. We don't want to waste any money. But when you say, has any money been spent? Yes, it has. Obviously it has. If we do a planning application, they don't come for free on all the officers' time to do it. So we have spent some of the budget on that, etc. At this stage, what can I say? Not a lot, really. If I'm totally honest, as my colleague thinks. Right. All I'll say, going back to the cleansing depots. Officers are currently working on the depot programme to ensure that statutory provisions and tender documents for the construction works are in place and comply with recent planning decisions. It says complaintive, I think it means comply. As things stand, we're working towards a July/summer 2026 depot completion. The plans to develop a new depot site are linked to the council's ambition to develop a WTS, waste transfer station, at the existing depot site. This still remains the council's intended plan to ensure certainty of disposal for all waste streams going forward. And I've got a little bit more. The County Council have also tendered for interim short-term disposal arrangements for the East Lancashire to support districts during the construction period that are developing their own waste transfer sites, like Burnley are doing at this stage. These were only ever planned, this is the County Council's plans, to be short-term and do not assist district with provisions for all other waste streams like food, plastic, rubbish, cardboard, etc. Burnley Borough Council are still awaiting the outcome of this procurement because we haven't heard anything because unfortunately the gentleman's off ill or off from the County Council that's putting it together. And once known, we will update members accordingly. So, and just that's all I want to say at this stage, because everything else is pure speculation, really. Till the County Council come up with something definite, one way or the other, we can't comment any further. But it's all under review, like we always said it would be. We'll be pragmatic in our approach. We have to plan for the worst or plan for what's going not if nothing happens. But at the end of the day, if something comes along to change it, we'll happily reconsider our point of view. Thank you. Have I finished, everybody? No, I haven't. Can't have done that. I sat down too quickly there, didn't I? Waste transfer station procurement exec. Was that you? That was Mark, wasn't it? Yeah. No, I haven't. Who was that last one? Who was before Councillor Ishak? Councillor Sane?
Councillor Ishak was the last one.
Sorry?
Councillor Ishak.
Councillor Ishak, the last one. No, I've got your question down. Right, I can give a politician's answer, which is no such thing as kingdom. They've all gone. So that's the answer. But being an honest politician, well, I've tried to be anyway. Being an honest politician, they changed the name to somebody else, so we still employ them under the new name. But we don't go down into detail for how they're performing and how many of those things were theirs. Generally speaking, I don't see our officers like on the streets all the time looking for everything. So when it comes to litter dropping and things like that, that will be some, like, I think they call themselves local government assistants now or something like that. So that's there. If you like, I'll speak to you outside of the meeting about performance measuring. You can come and happily chat with Street Scene with me and they'll tell you exactly what you want to know. But we don't individually report on it. There might be some observations yet, Mr. Mayor. I shall sit down quietly and
Any
patiently.
observations? Councillor Gemma Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm almost apologetic. Councillor Baker looks like he's suffering. It's PL4 page, well, kind of on page 148, but it's more what's not in here. I've recently had some contact with Street Scene about the Bin the Bangers. Bin the Bangers. Of course. About Bin the Bangers. After some contact from residents about problematic areas, and I would like to see that in here. I know that the last one they had was really successful and they took 15 dangerous vehicles and abandoned vehicles off the road in a certain area. So I would just like to put on record that I think that is a fabulous thing that they are doing, that it's going really well, and that they are responding to what residents need. And 15 vehicles in one day is a great piece of work.
Gemma Haig. Councillor Alan Hosker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As an executive member, Councillor Baker, no doubt in your position, you can write to the companies concerned and ask them to refrain from parking for taxi drivers on the pavements and save damaging and costing the taxpayers to have them repaired. I'll do better than that. Over the weekend, I'll photograph them for you.
Councillor John Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 152 again, PF20. I appreciate the exec member's honesty when he turned around and said that he doesn't know what what the level of service is in Padiham at the moment. But I can tell him that it wasn't so long ago that we had a full-time employee down there within the town centre itself, and on his retirement, it said that it wasn't going to be replaced. And I do remember raising the issue with officers, and they assured me that while it wasn't being replaced, what was going to happen, instead of having a 35-hour week cleanse down there, the hours would be reduced to 30, but over a 7-day period. Now, I thought that was a good compromise at the time. But I have to say to him that just lately, I've seen very little council staff down there within the town centre. And when you say that it's clean, the only reason why it's clean is because we've got Padiham litter pickers down there. And they're down there almost every day. What I don't want to hear when you come back from the officers, and I have raised this with officers myself, but what I don't want to hear is, because Padiham litter pickers are doing such a great job down there, we've actually withdrawn the service.
Councillor Baker. Howard Baker. Councillor Mogg Townsend.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, it's going back to PL 4148 and the waste transfer station stroke depot. I did write to the Cabinet Member for Rural Affairs, Environment and Communities at County Hall on this issue. And his reply, and I'll quote it, officers are currently, I don't think this will be any surprise, officers are currently undertaking a live procurement exercise with a view to securing an external provider to dispose of waste for councils in East Lancs. Once this is complete, we'll be in a position to have more specific conversations with yourself and other interested colleagues. We remain committed to work with all councils in the East Lancashire to find the best solutions for the future management of waste, which I think is good news for all concerned. Really what I was asking, and I didn't get the answer, was because I understand there'll be money spent on planning applications and things like that, but the big money will be on the letting of a contract to actually build a depot. And it's making sure that that depot is going to be needed before we actually commit the money. I noticed that, like Councillor Baker couldn't give me that guarantee. That's understood. But, well, I don't understand it, but I hear what he says. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
You don't answer all 4 questions because you go one more. The main we go one more. Okay, Councillor Anwer.
Just, no, it's an observation. It's just an observation. I'm not. It's just an observation, just on PL4, the same item that Councillor Townsend was speaking about there, and I think it's again, this council made a very wise decision to, as you said, plan for the worst. So I congratulate the officers and yourself for the work that was put in terms of that, and what we're proposing in terms of the waste transfer site. But it sounds to me like that a certain member has been, talking to Lancashire County Council and reform. So if we do end up with a waste transfer site in Hapton or Padiham, then we know who's behind that. And I hope then Councillor Harbour will speak as vocally about keeping Padiham clean, because we saw what happened with all the things about, birds and rats and all of that. So it'd be interesting to see how this one transpires. So, but as I said, the work that we've done, absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Howard Baker.
It's your turn now.
Your turn, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure whether you're asking me to go schizophrenic and ask myself for an observation, Mr Mayor. It's not the practice to reply to others. I take account with Councillor Townsend, and I'm pleased to see, like all Labour politicians, he only asks questions to which he knows the answers. So that was good that they'd already asked County Council what was going on. And you know, as much as I do about it, we're waiting for them to come up with something. If they come up with something brilliant and they say, oh, we're going to open another waste dump outside Burnley, but somewhere, preferably Blackburn perhaps, then obviously that will be good news and we can drop everything. But at the moment, if we do that, and when it comes to next year, and we haven't got anything in place, and I'm quite sure that Councillor Townsend and the rest of the group, and the rest of the councillors here, would not be remiss in saying, why the heck didn't you do something, Councillor Baker, on this, and make sure we had a plan in place, which is what we're doing at the moment, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Council, Development and Growth, Councillor Lubna Khan, will you please move your report from page 153 of the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I feel like I should say good evening, Mr Mayor, because it's been, it feels like it was a different meeting that started a couple of hours ago. It's been a long one. So I was going to highlight quite a lot of, it's an extensive report with a lot of good news stories in, but I believe obviously members will have had a chance to look at it and probably ask questions. So I'll just stick to the basics. On this, in our report, we have the officers have worked really tirelessly on many of the aspects that development and business and economy portfolio holds. And as off the back of that, I just wanted to mention that they were shortlisted. The team was actually shortlisted for a national award. This award ceremony was at the Lowry last week whilst we were at the LGR meeting. So unfortunately, I couldn't come. Unfortunately, they didn't win, but they are winners in my eyes. And I just wanted to put it on record that their hard work, tirelessly working on this portfolio, is a large portfolio. It's very technical and it's very serious. And they do it to, you know, with amazing passion. And I'm constantly getting updates from them. And I'm ever so grateful for all their hard work and all that they achieve throughout Burnley and Padiham. So I wanted that on record. I look forward to any questions from members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lubna. Any questions? Councillor Sue Graham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do have two questions. You want me to read them out in? Yeah. The first one is on PR 16, page 158, and it relates to the supply of employment land. You mention in, well, it's in PR 13 where you first mention it, that Vision Park is full. And in PR 16, you mentioned that Frontier Park and Advance Point are under construction and by the sound of things on the way to being fully let in the not too distant future. Can you explain what plans are in place for further employment sites to come forward to ensure that we've always got on offer attractive opportunities for business? Thank you. The second question that I've got is about the Boohoo Task Force. It's at PR 17, page 160. I'm glad that lots of organisations and potential employers have come forward to assist in finding alternative employment for the Boohoo employees who are losing their jobs. But can you tell me, or do you have some idea, of how many of the 500 staff who were made redundant on the 27th of October have found employment, and how many have actually been found employment by the task force? Thank you.
Councillor Alan Lewis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's page 158, PR 15. Just on Padiham Town Centre, I welcome the comments in there about how well certain businesses are doing, and there's a lot of positive things going on in Padiham. But I have had some concerns from residents recently in terms of the amount of empty shops, particularly on the hill in Padiham, and just wondering what the council strategy is for trying to relieve that. Thank you.
Councillor Lubna Khan.
Frantically trying to write everything down, so I hope I can read my own writing this evening. Thank you, Councillor Graham. Your question was regarding Vision Park, and I'm sorry I didn't get the second part. Was it PL 17, did you say? 16. PL 16. Yeah, an advance point. So I anticipated that some questions would come up around this because we are always coming to full council and explaining about how much of a good news story it is. I do know I had a meeting with the officer today and asked her about any future plans. We have been out to tender and we're actually in legal with the developer at the moment. I'm not able to disclose any of that information, but as soon as I am able to, I will be happy to share that with members. The second question was regarding, on this one, the Boohoo. So I do know, because I'm always keeping an ear to the ground regarding Boohoo, I do know that the leader did write to the minister, and we're in communication at the moment with obviously getting as best as deal as we can for our residents. I do also know that another careers fair is planned. Burnley Council has kindly, we're always working with them, and they've organised another one off the back of the one that happened recently. As regards to numbers, I don't know the numbers, and I'll be happy to get back to you with that. And then regarding the last question about empty shops on the hill in Padiham, I do love a Padiham question. I don't know what exactly do you mean about what is the plans for the. Can I have some clarity about? Do you mean the actual shops that are already empty? Was that the question?
Yeah, there's quite a few empty shops still in Padiham Town Centre, and obviously we want business to be boosted in Padiham as well as we do in Burnley, and just wondering if there's a strategy from the council to.
I agree wholeheartedly with the member, and you'll see what we are doing in Padiham is actually listed in there. What we're not doing or what we could do better, I'm always happy to work with you on. So if you could put it in an email to me to tell me exactly where you're talking about, and I can look into what we have currently, and also if the town council's involved as well, we could maybe work with them and help support anybody who's already currently working on that. Thank you.
So Councillor Gilbarton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is page 155, 156, PR14, talking about the digital technology sector. We heard earlier on when we were talking about the potential of ID cards, about how some of our residents aren't as digitally literate as the national average. That is something that was very, very stark to me when we worked through the COVID period with outside groups from very young children right through to the elderly. So I do take a great interest in digital inclusivity. We talk here about the means for tech businesses to thrive in Burnley. Obviously, I would hope that in the digital strategy that is being set out, improving those digital literacy skills that we talked about earlier is included in that. But can I also ask, and this is a gripe that I have mentioned previously, that the connectivity that we have in Burnley Town Centre just lets us down time and time and time again. How many of you have been in town, and if you separate from friends or family, they may be 3 shops away, but you can't get in touch with them because the connectivity on our phones is so bad.
Councillor Barton, it is a question, isn't
yes,
it?
it is a question. So I'm asking Councillor Khan whether they are factors which are included in the digital strategy that we're currently working on. And also the Infor group, it mentions here, looking to onboard 10 businesses to attend sessions on the practical use of AI and data. I note that that organisation are a Salford-based organisation, so can you confirm if the 10 businesses are local to Burnley or East Lancashire or a wider footprint? Thank you.
Councillor Lubna Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Barton, for your question. I'm not sure if the question basically pertains to something that is within my remit. You know, with connectivity, I'm not sure if it's something that is within my role, if I'm honest with you. However, I take on board what you say, connectivity could be better. I agree with your observations about digital literacy skills. And in regards to the info about whether this program delivers to people, it's currently looking to onboard 10. So them details, I'm not 100% sure on, because obviously they're following a process. Obviously, given that we're Burnley Council and we're working within the Burnley area, you would assume so. But however, that's an onboarding process, so I can get back to you with the exact details to give you some peace of mind that it is Burnley based. Okay, thank you.
Councillor, any observations? Councillor Gemma Haig.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is PR 13, page 155. I just wanted to put on the record my appreciation for the work done by the Burnley brand team to promote the borough. And as it's not mentioned in the report and is still relatively new and developing, but will be taking place only a week after our next full council in February, I wanted to note the hard work that is going into organising Burnley Bondholder event in Westminster on the 11th of Feb, to raise Burnley's profile nationally and get some airtime with the Secretary of State. Officers are hard at work with support from Lord Khan and the MP to make it a success. I will be there on the day and I hope to see Councillor Khan there too.
Councillor Jamie McGowan.
Thank you. This is just a quick observation. It's PR 14, page 155. I just wanted to just to make an observation for the exec member. You know, I run my own business. It's within the digital sector. I do videos, advertisements, etc. And I just wanted to put it on the record. And for your contemplation, there is some talk about whether this council puts quite a significant sum of money into a new DigiHub. And I would seriously consider whether to go ahead with that, considering the money that's involved. Because having running a business within that sector, I can tell you that I think personally, I agree with what's been said about digital skills. That's for the education and with the colleges. And to be honest, we live in a world now where you can learn practically anything on YouTube and the internet, and I would recommend anyone do that. But in terms of the council actually sinking a lot of money into a DigiHub, I'd just proceed with caution. That's all I'd say on it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Long.
Thank you. PR 13, page 154. I just want to say it's amazing to see how much good work is being carried out by the officers and the exec member. Pictures have been circulating from Burnley Business Week, and it's good to see how successful it's been in Burnley.
Thank you. Collection of my emails. I have had a phone call for an invite as well today, and very thankful for that invite, and hopefully get back to the team to let them know if I can make it to join everybody in London. So thank you for mentioning it in full council tonight as well. And yeah, it's a very nice thing to go to. It's one of the nicer parts of having this portfolio. So really appreciative. And I would like to echo as well all the hard work that the Burnley brand team do. They do some amazing work. So thank you for that. Councillor McGowan, regarding your observations on the digital technology sector and about how you can learn a lot of things off YouTube, totally agree with that. I will take on board your observations about how expensive it is and to proceed with caution. So thank you for that. Councillor Lawn, thank you for appreciating the officers that worked tirelessly on this. I think you are quite right. There were a lot of pictures that were circulating off the back of Burnley Business Week, which was a phenomenal week. I had mentioned it, the council meeting that we'd had before Burnley Business Week, and then obviously it's come up again in my report. So I do appreciate that. Yes, it was a brilliant week. I hope people learned a lot from it, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And just off the back of that, I would like to say as well that the Burnley Business Awards for 2026, the process for that has started. So there's loads more exciting things to come from this portfolio. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor. Housing, Health and Culture. Councillor Lorna, will you please move your report from page 163 of the agenda?
I move my report, Mr. Mayor. I'd really like to thank the staff and the delivery of the HAF support and also of the downtown staff. Obviously, Merry Christmas, everyone. No one's mentioned that and said that yet, so I'll get it in. If you've got any warm clothing or anything that you don't need, please go down to downtown and help if you can. There are consultations coming on speeding in Townley Park, and there's one about dog walking opening up. Please get your residents involved. Definitely subjects that are from the heart. Congrats to Burnley Leisure and Culture for their award nominations and opening their adventure golf. Special thanks to Charlotte Steele, who's been working really hard behind the scenes for Burnley 27 Year of Culture. There's been a couple of amazing events, one in the University building and another at the Mechanics that I was lucky enough to speak at. And I'd like to finish, it might be a bit random, but we booked Manny at the Burnley Mechanics in conversation, who passed away and was loved by this town, a member of the Stone Roses. I want to pass on my condolences to friends and family, so thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions? Councillor Alan Hosker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just ask the executive cabinet member, I should say, about what we talked about St John's Cemetery? It's like I said to you when we spoke about dog fouling on the graves. It's disrespectful. But St John's Cemetery in Padiham is a disgrace. I've been up and had a look at it personally. I have spoken to you about it. You're the member in charge. I'm asking you to look at it yourself, see what you think. I'm fed up of getting backlash of it because I'm one of Lord Councillors. I don't need it. You don't need it. We've got officers who are supposed to do it. Let's get it looked after, please. And including the law, it wants respraying, it wants tidying up. It's untidy. Thank you.
Councillor Alan Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 171, and that is PL6. Just on the private rented disrepair. Just on a few sort of reports that I've been aware of recently where tenants have reported disrepair. The council has got involved. They've contacted either the letting agent or the landlord, recommended improvements be made, which is good. And then the letting agent or the landlord tells the council officer that it's been done, and that's the end of it. And then you go back to the tenant and say, oh, council officer's told me this has been done, this is really great. And they say, no, no one's been around at all. So it just seems there's a bit of a flaw in the service there, that officers are not checking that stuff's been done before they're reporting back that yes, it has been done. So I'm just wondering if that can be looked into to make sure that improves for the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lorne, can you take two more questions? Councillor Dole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 165, PE3, thank you, Councillor Lorna, relating to damp and mould. It's great to see that the work's underway, but I'd be interested to know a little more detail as to whether there have been any significant changes or improvements, or indeed have they come across any major challenges since the introduction of Awaab's law. Do you consider at this stage that this law will prove to be a significant catalyst for change relating to this serious issue? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Shah Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 170 and PL6. And on here it says you've received 2,318 applications for selective licensing in Trinity, Gano, Queensgate, Padiham, Daneshouse and Stonium, and only 38 have been, of these applications have been licensed to date. And I'm a bit quite concerned about that. And I wanted to ask the question as to the reasons why, and also, is there a correlation between in licensing properties or properties in licensing areas and an increase in rent and demand? And in my ward itself, and I've been talking to residents, and they're quite concerned that suddenly the rent that they're paying has gone up by a quite significant amount. And I want to know if it's related to selective licensing or landlords putting on the cost of that onto tenants.
Councillor Jack Lorna.
Thanks for all those questions. Councillor Hosker, I'll get with Simon Goff and we'll come and look at the cemetery. I think we did clear away the trees, didn't we? So, but yeah, it took too long, and yeah, no, I understand. The damp and mould, I think Burnley Council working alongside Burnley Together was one of the, well, a council that has been first and right up there trying to get this done. There's always going to be challenges. Our housing stock, there's plenty of it that's in disrepair, and it really upsets me when I go through Burnley Wood, near where I grew up, and Trinity, to see some of the properties in the disrepair. And I really would welcome central government coming in and speaking with us about what we can do in the future. In terms of the rental market, in terms of selective licensing, if I was a landlord, I would probably put my rents up to cover any costs. But again, well, Burnley, there isn't enough houses in Burnley, I think, sometimes, even though we have the empty homes, but some of them are in disrepair. So I think there isn't enough supply. So some of the landlords were telling me in meetings, and so prices are going up. I've missed one question. What's that one? Yeah, what? Oh, I don't know the answer to that one, and I will get back to you, and we will get, we will find out, because that isn't right. There shouldn't be a disconnect, and if there is one, we'll find it and we'll sort it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any observations? Councillor Lone.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's PL6, page 174. I just want to put my thanks on record to the officers for the work which has been carried out in Burnley Cemetery in the baby section. It's looking so much better, and parents have contacted to say how much they are grateful. Thank you.
Councillor Haig. Councillor Haig.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. PL 6171, really. It's more just an observation on what Councillor Hussain had to say, so Councillor Lorna probably doesn't need to respond, but Councillor Hussain mentioned rent rises, and I'm sure we all get contacted by residents who are concerned about rent increases, and we know that those have gone through the roof. I just wanted to say to Councillor Hussain that I would really recommend the Shelter Professionals helpline that any councillors can ring to be given housing law advice if residents contact you and you don't know the answer. But on a basic thing, make sure that your first question to residents is, have you had a Section 13 notice on your rent rise, and have you been given a month? And is it reasonable within the law? So I found that really useful, and the Shelter Professionals helpline for all councillors is really worth ringing, and takes a lot of strain off our officers giving you the housing law advice as well. It's completely free, and as a councillor you count as a professional.
Councillor Shah Hussain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's observation on the question that I asked, page 170, PL6, and there has been a significant increase in rent demand especially within Danes House and Stoneyholme, and some of my residents are really struggling to pay for that demand, and especially when it's a deprived area, low income, and so on and so forth. I've always been against selective licensing, and I think Councillor Harbour would know that from a number of years when we've had discussions with regards to that. I don't think selective licensing has improved the housing stock, especially within my ward. All it's done is put a burden on landlords who are having to, repair very old houses, and then putting whatever expenses they are onto an increased rent demand. And it's not really worked, and it's we really need to look at that and look at alternative ways where we can have both, good housing as well as, rent that is affordable. to residents there. And I know it's for another 5 years, and I really hope, you know, when they do the audit and when they do the process in terms of how it's going, that we come to that conclusion. And housing hasn't really improved. I've got a lot of emails off landlords saying they've been asked to provide X, Y, and Z, and, you know, only way they can recoup that money is to put rent demand up, and, you know, why is council doing all this? So, look, I'm not a friend of a landlord. I'm not, you know, I want to be in a balanced side where, you know, I want people to get good housing, but not their rent be affected. And I feel selective licensing isn't doing that. It's having an adverse effect in my ward in particular. Thank you.
Councillor Lorne, are you okay with 2 more observations before you come back? Councillor Brindle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PE3, page 167. In connection with the community grocery, and I appreciate the figures here and the good work they do and how it helps so many people. However, there's an absent point that you've not made, in that a lot of the work of those community grocers, and particularly the one at the Valley Street office, which isn't mentioned here, the dedicated work done by all the volunteers who have turned up week in, week out on a regular basis and provided a lot of help. I have 1 or 2 connections with the Valley Street outlet, and the number of people that really appreciate that extra help provided by the volunteers and the commitment they put in, I think should be recognised if you have another report. Thank you.
Councillor Jamie McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a very quick observation. I'm sat next to the borough's main Father Christmas this year, so I just want to say on the end of this meeting, from the Conservative group, I just wanted to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lorne.
Thanks, Councillor Brindle. I think one of the Jamie, the brilliant thing about the grocery is getting people off the food parcels, and it's probably one of the most things that makes me most proud about representing the council is that that has come up with in downtown. So we will give a special thank you and put that in the next report. I haven't really got any answers to any of the other observations, I'm sorry. So please email me, my email address is always open. So it's a pleasure to see you all tonight, and Merry Christmas.
Councillor Anwer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just an observation. I know Councillor Brindle alluded to Valley Street, and there's been a lot of talk about Burnley Together and the food banks and what have you. But I know that if there was one good thing to come out of that dreaded COVID, it was actually Burnley Together and the way all of our different agencies and partners and everything came together to deliver for our residents. And obviously Burnley Together and the grocery and all of these things came as a result of that. But I just want to thank officers and colleagues for actually this time round. One of the things that happened there, we had a number of community food banks that were set up. And I'd just like to thank the council and officers and the exec member, because one of those food banks was the Gosia Mosque food bank that worked alongside West End Community Centre. And every Christmas since COVID, we've been going and providing food parcels and packs and support for the community in West End alongside Chris Keane. And it's a fantastic initiative. And this time there's funding available for that as well, for those food banks to be able to support those initiatives in their areas. So I'd just like to say thank you for the executive member and for the support we provide and bringing our communities together, because that's ultimately what we all want to see. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lorne, would you like to come back on that observation? Okay then. Item 10, questions on the standing order 10.2.
None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes the business for tonight's meeting. I would like to take the opportunity to wish you all the very best for the festive season ahead. So happy Christmas and happy New Year, and all the best for 2026.